Imagine for a moment that Earth, our home, stops rotating for 1 second. Although it may seem like a premise from a science fiction movie, the concept of a sudden interruption of Earth's rotation carries fascinating and terrifying implications. Earth's rotation is a fundamental characteristic that shapes our daily life, from the alternation between day and night to the influence it exerts on climate patterns, marine life, and the natural systems of the planet. But what would happen if this rotation stopped, even for just a brief moment? This extreme scenario could trigger catastrophic consequences for the planet and all the living beings inhabiting it. Throughout this video, we will explore the devastating effects of a momentary halt in Earth's rotation, based on scientific theories and studies that allow us to imagine how everything we know would change. Through this analysis, we will discover how such a seemingly insignificant interruption in rotation could cause radical changes in climate, oceans, seismic activity, and ecosystems, affecting both nature and human civilization. This exercise not only takes us to a hypothetical scenario, but also invites us to reflect on the fragility of our planet and the importance of natural processes that we often take for granted. Science offers us tools to imagine the unimaginable, and in this video, we will explore what might happen if Earth stopped rotating, even if only for a second. The Earth, like a giant spinning top, rotates on its axis at a speed of approximately 1,670 kilometers per hour at the equator. This rotational movement is crucial for the planet's balance. When we observe how Earth functions, it seems like a stable planet, with a day-night cycle that we have experienced forever. However, the reality is that Earth's rotation has a much deeper impact than we might imagine. It is involved in nearly every aspect of our environment, from the distribution of solar energy to the behavior of the oceans and the atmosphere. Earth's rotation is directly linked to gravity, climate, and the cycle of the seasons. As the Earth spins, the sun illuminates different parts of the planet, creating the temperature variations we know as seasons. Without this movement, sunlight would be unevenly concentrated on the surface of the Earth, causing a dramatic shift in global temperatures. Additionally, without rotation, the cycle of day and night would disappear, altering the way species adapt to their environments. But what would happen if Earth's rotation stopped, even for just 1 second? To understand this, we first need to grasp how physics influences the planet's rotation. Earth, due to its enormous mass, carries a significant amount of kinetic energy. This energy results from its rotational speed, which drives the movement of the atmosphere, oceans, and Earth's crust. If the rotation were to suddenly halt, all this energy would not disappear. Instead, it would be released in the form of catastrophic forces that would impact the entire planet. According to some scientists, if Earth's rotation stopped, the atmosphere would continue to move at the same speed, causing violent winds that would be devastating. Additionally, the water in the oceans would continue to shift due to inertia, generating massive waves and possible tsunamis. The Earth's crust, in turn, would experience a massive seismic shock, as the forces that stabilize the planet would be destabilized. These reactions would not be confined to one location. They would be global, affecting all continents simultaneously. There are scientific models that predict how Earth's elements would react to such an extreme event. Studies in planetary physics and celestial body dynamics give us an idea of the effects a sudden stop in Earth's rotation would have. In fact, it is believed that such a drastic change could trigger a series of natural disasters, from earthquakes to extreme weather disruptions. However, although this is a highly unlikely scenario, research on Earth's behavior shows us how vulnerable our planet is to the effects of any disturbance in its movement. Imagine for a moment that Earth's rotation stops, even if only for a second. What would immediately follow would be a catastrophic domino effect, as every part of the Earth is interconnected, and when one is affected, the others would be as well. The changes would not be limited to a single sector of the planet. Everything would destabilize. When Earth's rotation halts, the atmosphere would continue to move due to inertia, creating extremely violent winds. To understand the magnitude of this impact, we can compare it to the strongest winds produced during hurricanes or tornadoes, but multiplied by a much greater factor. Winds would blow at speeds exceeding 1,600 kilometers per hour, enough to destroy buildings, flatten cities, and create chaos worldwide. These forces would not be confined to a local area. The atmosphere would continue to shift for hours, affecting vast stretches of land, oceans, and populations. Moreover, the release of energy would trigger a series of massive earthquakes. As Earth's rotation stopped, the planet would experience a snap in its internal structure, causing massive seismic movements. The tectonic plates, already in constant motion, would be disrupted, leading to large-scale earthquakes that would shake entire continents. The energy accumulated in the movement of the Earth's crust would be released as seismic waves, devastating infrastructure and displacing large amounts of land. If Earth's rotation were to stop, another immediate and catastrophic effect would occur in the oceans. Like the atmosphere, the oceans also have mass and inertia, meaning they would continue to move even as the Earth halted. This movement of water would generate giant waves, some of which could reach unimaginable heights. These tsunamis would sweep across coastlines, flooding lands that would have otherwise remained intact. Massive waves of water would continue to move at high speeds, impacting not only coastal areas but also the interior of continents. Major port cities such as New York, Tokyo, or Buenos Aires would be submerged by the impact of these waves, which would not only destroy buildings but also alter entire ecosystems. The force of the water would be so great that, in addition to flooding large areas of land, it could modify the topography of entire regions, causing new geographical formations and altering the course of rivers and lakes. With Earth's rotation halted, the global climate would be immediately and drastically altered. Earth's rotation not only marks the alternation between day and night, but also regulates temperature patterns. Without this cycle, areas exposed to the sun would experience a massive heat surge, while the dark zones would experience extremely cold temperatures. The abrupt shift in temperatures would alter global climate patterns. Regions closer to the equator, which typically experience warmer temperatures, would be subjected to extreme heat, while the polar areas, now without the rotation to balance sunlight, would endure severe cold. Climate systems, such as winds, ocean currents, and precipitation, would be disrupted or even halted, causing extreme droughts or torrential rains in various parts of the world. This climate change would not only affect human life but also natural ecosystems. Animal migration patterns and plant growing seasons would be severely disrupted, triggering a global ecological crisis. The extreme temperature shifts would also impact agriculture, causing massive crop losses and, consequently, famines in many regions of the world. The scenario following the cessation of Earth's rotation would not only immediately impact the atmosphere, oceans, and ecosystems, but the long-term consequences would be even more devastating. The disruption of such a fundamental phenomenon would have effects that would last long after the initial impact. From the loss of natural habitats to the collapse of human infrastructures, life as we know it would be radically altered. The shift in climate conditions would only be the beginning. Animal and plant species that depend on the regular cycle of day and night would not be able to adapt to the new conditions. Ecosystems, already fragile due to factors such as climate change and deforestation, would be irreversibly damaged. Wildlife, which relies on migration patterns and growing seasons, would be plunged into chaos. Many species would not survive the extreme temperature fluctuations, and others, already on the brink of extinction, might disappear completely. The effects of this ecological collapse would be inevitable and would impact the entire food chain, including humans. The impact on human civilization would be equally dramatic. First, the infrastructures that support modern life, such as power plants, transportation systems, and communication networks, are not designed to withstand such a sudden change. Power grids would collapse due to the destruction of physical infrastructures. Satellites in orbit would be lost because their operation depends on Earth's rotation, and navigation systems, both in the air and at sea, would become useless. Humans would depend on technology to survive, but that very technology would be non-functional. Cities would quickly be overwhelmed by chaos and resource shortages. Agriculture, which relies on stable climate conditions and the seasonal cycle, would face an unprecedented crisis. Crops would be devastated by extreme temperatures and disruptions in weather patterns. The resulting food scarcity would lead to a global famine, with millions of people struggling to survive. The transportation of supplies would also be severely affected, as roads and ports, destroyed by earthquakes and tsunamis, would become inaccessible. Civilization, which already depends on a delicate balance to thrive, would fall into an existential crisis. This catastrophic scenario is not just a warning about the fragility of the planet's natural systems, but also about our own vulnerability. As humans, we have come to believe that we own the Earth, capable of manipulating it at will. However, the effects of such a drastic change would demonstrate how small and fragile we are in comparison to the natural forces that govern the universe. Just like other extreme events such as climate change or pandemics, this type of cataclysm would remind us of the importance of living in harmony with nature and respecting the processes that make life on Earth possible. Although this scenario is highly unlikely, The mere act of imagining it invites us to reflect on our relationship with the planet. It forces us to ask how we can act to protect ourselves from the uncontrolled forces of nature and how we can prevent the damage we are already causing to the environment. We live on an extraordinary planet that seems stable and reliable, but in reality, it is in constant change. In fact, our ability to survive extreme events depends on our ability to understand natural processes and adapt to them. Now more than ever, it is essential that we recognize the importance of studying and understanding Earth sciences. Scientific research not only helps us understand phenomena like Earth's rotation and its effects, but also allows us to take preventive measures against natural disasters and, most importantly, to promote a sustainable life on a planet that remains, in many ways, a mystery. Through knowledge and education, we can begin to make informed decisions that help preserve the delicate balance that makes life as we know it possible. The global landscape would radically change after a disruption in the Earth's rotation. While many of the initial effects would be devastating, the recovery process would also be something entirely new and different. Earth could begin to stabilize, but the aftermath of this catastrophic event would last for a long time, possibly forever. Human civilizations would need to adapt to a new reality, and life on the planet, in general, would follow a different course than we have known so far. Human adaptation to these conditions would be a matter of survival. Initially, humans would be overwhelmed by the magnitude of the disasters. The ruined cities, lack of food, and widespread chaos would test our resilience. However, humanity has shown throughout history that it is capable of enduring and adapting to extreme conditions. Despite the devastating effects, survivors would seek ways to reorganize and rebuild. Societies would likely divide into smaller groups and communities, adapting to the new climate conditions and seeking survival in what was left of the inhabited world. The new environment would have to be faced from a completely different perspective. The new climate conditions, with zones of extreme heat and unsustainable cold, would require radical changes in the way people grow food, obtain water, and produce energy. Renewable energy sources, such as solar or wind power, would be even more important in a world where traditional energy systems would no longer function. Technological innovations, which have been a pillar of modern civilization, would be crucial for reconstruction. People would need to rebuild infrastructure from scratch, which could take decades, if not centuries. The interaction between humans and the planet would be transformed irreversibly. The adaptation process would also come at an ecological and social cost. As humans tried to rebuild their civilizations, the ecosystems that had survived the cataclysms would also have to adapt. The competition for resources would be fierce, and many animal and plant species could disappear completely. While life on Earth might continue, it would likely look radically different. Some ecosystems could become virtually unrecognizable due to climate changes, forced migrations, and the loss of biodiversity. The oceans, which would have been deeply affected by the impact of the rotational stoppage, could begin to gradually stabilize, but changes in ocean currents and the global climate would have unpredictable side effects. Marine species would also be affected, and the oceanic food chain would undergo significant disruptions. While some species might adapt to the new conditions, others would be doomed to extinction. Marine ecosystems, essential for regulating climate and the carbon cycle, would be altered on an unprecedented scale. Throughout this process, humanity would witness how the world, in its struggle to restore balance, would undergo profound transformation. In rebuilding, we would have to face new priorities: resilience, sustainability, and the protection of natural resources. In a way, this event would force us to rethink our relationship with the planet. What was once seen as an external nature, separate from us, would become an integral part of our survival. We would learn, in the hardest way possible, that Earth is an interconnected and fragile system, in which human actions have profound consequences. Thus, this catastrophic event could serve as a wake-up call for future generations. Although improbable, the mere act of imagining such an extreme scenario allows us to reflect on how the small alterations we are causing in the environment could have global effects. If we understand the interdependence of natural systems and commit to reducing our footprint on the planet, perhaps we can prevent something like this from happening, even on smaller scales, such as the climate crisis we face today. Imagining this extreme scenario in which the Earth's rotation stops, we cannot help but reflect on the impact it would have on human perceptions of our planet's fragility. This type of event, though extremely unlikely, would serve as a powerful metaphor for how little we truly control in the vast scheme of the natural forces around us. Humans tend to feel invincible in the face of threats, whether because of our technological advances, our highly developed cities, or the illusion that the stability of the Earth is a constant that will always be part of our existence. However, what this hypothetical event would demonstrate is how ephemeral our presence on the planet really is. Science, as a source of knowledge, offers us a refuge from the fear of the unknown by providing explanations for natural phenomena and their possible consequences. But this same science also confronts us with the reality of our vulnerability. By understanding the fundamental processes that keep the Earth in balance, we can begin to visualize how a small alteration, like the stopping of its rotation, could trigger a chain reaction that would affect all life. This kind of reflection invites us to reconsider how our everyday actions, seemingly harmless, impact the delicate natural systems we depend on. The hypothetical event of the Earth's rotation stopping allows us to tangibly understand our relationship with the environment. Often, in daily life, we are disconnected from the processes that sustain the natural world, such as the water cycle, the seasons, climate, and biodiversity. These phenomena may seem constant and unchanging, but science reminds us that they are fragile and subject to disruptions. In a world where the effects of climate change are becoming increasingly evident, this type of exercise forces us to reflect on the importance of acting responsibly to preserve the balance of the natural systems that make life as we know it possible. This mental exercise, though dramatic and devastating, also offers us an opportunity to learn. By facing the idea that such a cataclysmic event could have global effects, we better understand the urgent need to adapt and take preventive measures. From reducing our carbon footprint to preserving vital ecosystems, our actions today have long-term repercussions. The future of humanity and life on Earth depends on our ability to make wise and sustainable decisions. In this sense, the purpose of exploring such an extreme scenario is not just to awaken fear or anxiety about our future, but to generate awareness. Information and knowledge empower us to make informed decisions that can mitigate risks. Although the stopping of the Earth's rotation is a highly unlikely scenario, it offers us an invaluable lesson about the interconnection of planetary systems and how our intervention can alter the course of nature. In a way, this exercise prepares us to face current crises, like climate change, with a deeper understanding of the natural forces that affect our world. Reflecting on Earth's vulnerability to cosmic forces also invites action in the present. This type of reflection not only reminds us how fragile we are, but also challenges us to act, to be more mindful of the decisions we make, and to consider their long-term impact. Ultimately, the true message we can extract from an event like the stopping of the Earth's rotation is the need for greater respect and harmony with nature, which must form the basis of any conservation and sustainability strategy for humanity's future. At the end of this entire exercise of speculation, what truly remains is a reminder of what it means to be part of such a complex and delicate ecosystem. Although the scenario of the Earth's rotation stopping remains highly improbable, it is a powerful metaphor that urges us to consider the consequences of our actions on the planet. We live in an era of scientific and technological advancements, but we also face global challenges that threaten our way of life. Climate change, biodiversity loss, ocean pollution, and the depletion of natural resources are just a few examples of how our footprint on Earth is altering the balance of natural systems. This exercise also invites us to reconsider how we perceive our relationship with the environment. Often, we see Earth as something that is at humanity's service, something we can manipulate at will without consequences. However, what this hypothetical scenario of the Earth's rotation stopping highlights is that, while we can influence the environment, we will never be completely in control of it. Nature is an interconnected system, and as such, our actions have repercussions that go beyond the immediate. Ultimately, what this scenario teaches us is the importance of resilience, both on an individual and collective level. Humanity has proven, throughout history, to be capable of facing great catastrophes and adapting to new circumstances. However, we have also witnessed how societies can collapse when lessons from nature and the planet's limits are not taken into account. If the world were struck by an event as catastrophic as the one we have described, only those who could quickly adapt to the new conditions would have a chance to survive and thrive. Therefore, the question is not whether an event like the stopping of Earth's rotation will happen, but how we can prepare for other challenges, both natural and human-made, that are already affecting our way of life. By recognizing the inherent vulnerability of our planet and the interdependence of all its systems, we can make wiser and more responsible decisions to ensure that future generations inherit a world still capable of sustaining life. In conclusion, although the described scenario is highly improbable, it offers us a powerful reflection on the limits of our ability to control nature. As we move toward the future, it will become increasingly important to recognize that our well-being depends on the balance of natural systems. Only through global cooperation, sustainability, and respect for Earth can we ensure that the world remains a habitable place for generations to come. The study of these phenomena, even if hypothetical, can guide us to a more conscious and harmonious future with the planet. This type of reflection reminds us that true strength does not lie solely in our ability to dominate the world, but in our ability to understand it, respect it, and ultimately live in harmony with it.